4 years ago, Nicola was driving this rare P38 when the auxiliary belt snapped. She limped it 2 miles home, but in the process, this engine overheated. And although I actually fixed the auxiliary belt, I've never tested this engine since, so it could be, well, cooked. And since then, this air suspension has completely collapsed, slamming this P38 totally on the deck. And to top it all off, this thing is dead. Today, I'm going to try and get this aired up, the engine running, and moved for the first time in 4 years. Moving 2.5 tons of dead Land Rover is pretty brutal, and the front brakes are binding, which isn't really helping. The steering's completely dead weight, and the car's scraping the deck on its bump stops. And I guarantee it won't just be a cooked engine and dead air system that we fight in here. This engine could be totally wrecked. It was driven 2 miles home with no auxiliary belt, no water pump, and overheating. It was into the red by the time it actually made it back home. So we could have slipped a liner, we could have warped the cylinder heads, and that's before we even tried to get this thing started. And I can already see signs of some massive oil leaks. P38 air suspension system is legendary, but for all the wrong reasons. It's an absolute maze of complex high pressure nylon lines, height sensors, a dedicated compressor, and a really complicated valve block with 8 solenoids that raise and lower the height of this vehicle. Trying to fix this can end up being a diagnostic nightmare, and on top of that, it can be incredibly expensive. This vehicle could be ultimately a write-off before we've even started. Now, this 4.6 litre V8 is an incredible engine. However, these things do run hot, and being driven for 2 miles with no water pump and overheating is absolute disaster for this engine. We could get lucky and it might actually be perfectly okay, but also we might have absolutely destroyed this engine, and we're not going to know until we get it started. So let's jump in and actually see whether or not this thing will even fire. Let's get a jump pack. Now, I don't have a correct battery for this, so I've taken an 80 amp hour 700 cold cranking amp battery off one of my Porsches to put onto this. And obviously the terminals are the wrong way, but we've kind of got it in there. Now, a lot of people are going to say straight away this is going to be a problem, and it probably is, because these things are very cold cranking amp dependent. And under normal circumstances, you would want probably 1,000 cold cranking amps, but it's not winter, it's summer, it's red hot, and I think we'll be able to get away with it to try to get this thing started. But before we do anything like attempt to start it, I think I'd better add some oil, because this has been leaking a lot of oil. So I'm going to put some of this 10W40 into it, just pour this in, and I don't know how much it's going to take. I'm guessing it's going to be at least a couple of litres, because there's quite a lot of oil on the floor. And this one is new and full. I'm going to swap hands so that I can do a left hand port and hold the camera with my right hand. This is going to be dodgy. Oh, do you know something? Not that bad for left-handed when I'm actually right-handed, but using my left hand, if that makes any sense whatsoever. What am I rambling on about? But yeah, that is now done and dusted. I can check that, and I think that's put about 2.5 litres in total, and it's probably alright for now. We should be good to give this an attempted start. Now, this battery is fully charged, but as I say, it's only 700 cold cranking amps. It's not as big as these things really need. But my biggest worry right now is not the battery, it's the key. And that's because this key got destroyed when my son threw it across the floor. I have had it rebuilt, but as I'd feared, it doesn't work. So we've got an EKA code lockout, and anybody familiar with P38s will know that that spells disaster. So what that means is that the security system will not let the car start. So we've got battery power, we've got amps going through the engine, we should be able to start it, but the security system literally just cuts it all off. And we've got to try and enter an EKA code in via the door lock, but these P38 door locks are notoriously sensitive to how you turn the key to get the code in. And it's a series of 4 numbers that you put in to try to override the security system, and you have to do that if the key won't work. So the key has to go into the lock, and we have to turn this, I think it's 4 or 5 times to the left. Despite trying many times and adjusting the speed of the turn, making sure it came back to the centre every time, it still wouldn't work, and I still kept getting the engine disabled on the dashboard. So I figured at this point that there must be another problem elsewhere other than the EKA and the key, so I better figure out what. And the first thing I'm going to try is the micro switches on this door lock, because they are the things that control the signal that gets sent when you enter the EKA and send it to the BECM, which is under this driver's seat. I think first of all we've got to try and just look at those switches and see whether or not they're working or they're gunked up, or if the rods are disconnected. So we better get this door card off. Taking this out. Careful. There we go. There is, I think, an electrical connector somewhere. There we go. I need to get. So that's the door card off. Looks like somebody has been in here before, because this is actually already partially torn away. Which did make me wonder if somebody had had a problem with these micro switches before, or maybe the door lock, because it's only really pulled back at this top corner. It's not as if you would be replacing a window or anything like that. But I do know for certain that we've never been in here to take a look at this. But this door handle itself is loose. So we've got a bunch of problems here that we know are going to contribute to that micro switch issue, that is for sure. So the way that this micro switch works in the door lock is, it's not from magic from the keyblade, it's not really reading that, it's sending a signal via those little micro switches every time you're turning the key, and it sends that signal down to the BECM, which is sitting underneath the driver's seat where I am. And if that linkage is worn or dirty or got grime on it or grease, then basically it just will not communicate with the BECM, and we get the problem that we're having right now, which is that the car won't start, it won't read the EKA code, and you are stuck. And I've seen this happen so many times. I'm just not an expert at trying to fix this, so we're gonna have to try and look at these linkages, see if I can spot anything obvious, and try and get some electrical contact cleaner in there maybe, and just hope that we can actually get this to fire up. But honestly, right now, I don't think that the chances are really very good. I've got actually no real idea exactly about how this works at all. So what I do know is that those micro switches come into the barrel on the lock assembly. So I'm going to try and get some electrical contact cleaner in there. I'll try and push some in from the outside of here as well, although I don't actually think that's going to work at all. I can't really see anything wrong with this, to be honest. It doesn't look particularly dirty, everything looks connected properly, but obviously these things are so sensitive that even the slightest millimetre will render it inoperable. So I just don't know, it's just guesswork, and I guess I'm going to have to run through a bunch of these problems to try to figure out what's going wrong with it. There's also like a multi-pin plug in there, and I've tried to clean up that as well. Can't really get in to show you exactly what I've done here, but fingers crossed that's enough to actually enable us to try to start this car again. So I'm going to cycle the key backwards and forwards in the lock, really just to try and get that electrical contact cleaner moving around the system. Something's not quite right, but again, this lock is clearly broken and it does need a new handle. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get one of those today. Just entered the EKA code again, and it still doesn't sound like it's working, but I'm going to give it a go. But we've still got the same problem. But nothing that I was doing was working, and I was getting a little bit concerned with the amount of stuff that I have to get done today to try to get this up and running again. Off camera, I did try synchronizing the key again, but the key is definitely not working either. And so right now the only hope is that we can get the car to accept the EKA code. Now if it works, these should be flashing twice, but these are just flashing and flashing repeatedly. So something is still pretty wrong somewhere along the lines. Just haven't worked out what that is yet. Right, I think I left it too long on that last attempt, so I've put the EKA code in, we've done all of the wiring bits again, and I think that this might actually work. It did sound like the EKA code had entered properly, so... come on. No! Unfortunately, it still won't start. So we've still got the EKA lockout code coming up on the dash. And that means, yeah, it's back to the drawing board. So I'm going to go back to these micro switches again because, as I say, I feel as though that's probably where the problem lies. We've got to try and figure out if we can get it just operating for now. What are you laughing at, idiot? It's not funny that it won't start. Oh, man. Just ignore this idiot. She's still laughing that the car won't start. What the hell, man? Unbelievable. I don't know why that started. I've got absolutely no idea why that has run. I don't know what we did. I literally don't know what we did to fix that. But it's running. The big problem that we've got now is whether or not this thing is going to overheat. I don't know if it's going to overheat. I have obviously checked the coolant. It has got coolant in there. So I'm going to have to let this get up to temperature and see whether or not that temperature gauge goes up to find out whether or not this engine is totally and utterly shot. So I've had this car running now for about 15 minutes. It's up to temperature and everything is okay. It's unbelievable. So it looks like we've got away with it. It looks like this engine actually works. I knew this old girl would have that fighting spirit. That doesn't mean to say that we're completely out of the woods though, because that air compressor is not running. So we've got no air suspension, and you can see, although the temperature gauge is perfectly fine, I don't know if you can see down here, we have got the air suspension warning light on, and all of these are illuminated like a Christmas tree. For now, it seems to be operating as it should. And you know something? It sounds amazing. Ooh. That's really motivational for me right now, just to hear that engine roaring like that again. And this thing sounds absolutely banging. I love it, love it. Let's try and have a look at this air suspension. Well, now that the Range Rover's engine is running, it's on to the next problem, which is solving this air suspension. Diving into the fuse box and taking a look at this, I can see that relay number 20 controls the air compressor, and that seems like a pretty good place to start, to be honest. I've set the multimeter now to ohms, and I'm going to test the resistance on this, and if it's healthy, it should probably be between, I don't know, maybe 75 and 90-ish ohms on the screen. So that looks all right to me. So the next job is to try and take a look at the MaxiFuse 2, which I think is this one here. Don't have a fuse puller to get this out, so not actually as straightforward as it might appear. Come out. There we go. So let's have a little look at this. That actually looks all right. So doesn't seem to be anything wrong with that, but we'll test it anyway. Okay, so this is working. I managed to get the air compressor running. I'll try and show you a clip. I think we've got a clip off one of the mobile phones. But unfortunately, it's still not airing up the car. So there's a problem somewhere else within the system. The compressor itself does fire up, but again, I don't know, it just will not level the car up. We've still got all of the same warning lights on the dashboard that we had before. If you watch one of the earlier Porsche videos, you might have spotted that Big Baz brought me down some connectors to be able to try to manually air this up. And with the amount of time that we've got left, it's definitely the best plan. Let's try to get these pipes connected direct into the airbags. I'm just going to finish off connecting all of the pieces together to be able to plug those in and see whether or not this is actually going to work. We've made some of these, which are ultimately push-fit airlines, and I've measured out all of these like this, and we can now connect these together. And we've got another one here, which we can push into here. Make sure they're all pointing the right way. Like that. This is an air manifold that we're now going to try and plug into this and try and air this car up manually without this compressor actually having to run. It is a compressor, and this normally fills a big air tank on the Range Rover to actually air up the car, but obviously That's not working right now, so what we've done is we've pulled these air lines, and these air lines go straight to the airbags that effectively raise this car. So that is the 2 rear airbags that have now got a manifold and pipe connected. So we've now got to connect the front 2. So we're pushing these front 2, and that's on, and then I just need to connect this side of the manifold. There we go. So that's a feed now, an air feed to both the rear and the front, and I just need to be able to connect this so that I can plumb in the airline out of the compressor.
My big problem now is I don't know the operating pressure of this air system, so these valves could leak and seep all of that air back out.
So each one of these is a control for the valve that allows me to open the valve and ultimately fill the airbag with air and then shut that off so we can trap that so that the car stays inflated. At this end here, this is going to go into the compressor, and that's going to allow us to push air into it. And I've put a valve onto that airline as well, actually a couple of valves, so I can control the air going in so that I can actually get the compressor, well, basically full of air. So yeah, the only thing left to do now is to connect this to the compressor and see whether or not this actually works, or see whether or not there is a leak in one of the airbags, which I don't think that there is. As I say, I think the biggest problem that we've got right now is that there's a height level sensor or something like that that's basically stopping that compressor from airing this car up. Yeah, I'm pretty excited, so we're going to find out whether or not this strange Frankenstein concoction works, but in theory it should do. Let's give it a go. So as you can see on this, what I've done is put a valve in here, and there's a valve down here, and again the same pipe work, and we can just plug this straight into here, and that should now be a sealed air circuit. I'm going to shut the valves first of all because I need to get some air into the tank. I'm going to make sure that all of these individual valves are shut down here. Right, this is pretty much the exciting bit now, because I'm going to open the air lines on this compressor, turn those valves on, and this P38 should go up in the air and inflate itself, and for the first time in a long time come off those bump stops. So let's give it a go.
And right about now I made a massive mistake. I forgot that I'd opened the valves on the manifold and I nearly exploded the airbags.
Whoa, that's coming up pretty fast. Wow guys, that is coming up pretty fast, so I'm going to have to go really, really steady, and then I'm going to have to get a tape measure and measure the height of these. So I'm just going to shut off those valves again, and we'll give this another go. So we got a little bit carried away on the last attempt and absolutely pushed far too much air through it far too quickly. So this time we're going to go a little bit steadier, going to try and air this up and see if we can get this off its bump stops for the first time in 4 years.
But to do that, it might help if I plug the airline in. Now this took a little bit of eyeballing each corner to try to get this approximately level before I got the tape measure out, and I tried to aim for around 855mm to the top of the wheel arch on each corner.
Right, now I really need to measure this because I think some sides are a little bit too high and some sides are a little bit too low. Some of the corners are a little bit too low. And we're now back, it's back for the first time at a relatively normal ride height, although this is probably off-road ride height. So we need to probably lower it, adjust it, measure it, but my God, it feels like a result, this feels like a result. And now it looks like a Range Rover P38 again, famous for that air suspension. Over 900mm, so we need to take some air out of this. Let's go and look at the other side. Here we're at about 860mm. We're about 860ish, 850 odd.
Get a woman to do measurements because men just make it up.
Don't know what she's talking about. There's a solid 12-inch gap between the tyre and the arch.
Is this this front? Oh, feels like it's mine.
Yeah.
When we first started this job this morning, I really didn't hold any expectation about how far we were going to get, because I knew this would have a bunch of problems, and we've been so lucky that we've got to the stage where we've managed to start the car. That is amazing, but more importantly, that V8 engine is actually seemingly okay. That overheating that happened when Nicola limped this car home for a mile or two has not destroyed this beautiful V8 engine, and it was sat literally on its ass banged out, aired out, looking amazing, but looking neglected. And now it actually looks like a P38 Range Rover should. I give you the P38, the most luxurious, most regal four-wheel drive that's available. Let me tell you something, Queen Elizabeth had one of these, and if it's good enough for the Queen, then it's definitely good enough for me. Look at it, amazing. Now during the day today, I've got pretty hot and sweaty.
I'm pretty certain that these clips are not going to do well for me on a certain website. But that aside, I haven't got time to mess around because the brakes on this P38 are wrecked. And we haven't got long left. I need to jump in and change them.
Feels absolutely amazing to be driving this thing again and it actually moving. That's made my day so far. No matter what else goes wrong today, that is just a massive, massive win. Let's do these brakes, see if we can get a new caliper on, new discs on, new pads on. Let's see if we can get this to the workshop. Let's figure what else needs to be done to put this P38 back into perfect condition.
See the Audi TT behind me? That's a whole other project, isn't it? That's a whole other story. Not for today, but I have managed to find this, which is the locking wheel nut for this, which I didn't even know actually was with this car, so that's a real bonus. It was in the glove box. We have managed to lose the centre cap out of the wheel, and you can see all of the brake dust from where the caliper's been stuck on, and this disc is pretty messed up. Well, we just had a bit of an incident there. I think the cart's come off the jack, which is because this tailgate was stuck. So I was pushing it quite hard to try and get this open to get into the back of here, and I think I pushed it off the jack, so I better go and try and fix that. As you can see, that is as sketchy as it comes. We better get an axle stand under there pretty quick if we can find one. What do you think, guys? Think we can get away with jacking this again? Hard to see, but it's probably alright. That's where we are for now. Oh, that could have been a disaster. Yeah, P38s are not the lightest vehicle either, to be fair. Surprised I managed to push that off. Get a bit of heat into this. Well, a bit of heat did the job. We've got a bit of smoke coming from there, but she is finally out. Just got this one to get out now. No vol spray, I'll use zinc. It's probably one of the better zinc primers for me, so yeah, we've got that covered on there. And I'm just going to use whatever I've got lying around, which is this Promatic high temperature silver. In the meantime, I'm going to clean up just that hub, also the disc behind it a little bit, just to make it a bit tidier. I'm just going to put a little bit of zinc primer on there. I've blasted it in the sandblast cabinet a little bit, and also with a wire wheel. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it's better than it was. A little bit of this going to go on, and then I'm going to probably hammerite it for now. Got new discs, a new caliper, or actually new calipers all round to go on, but fronts to do first. Front disc, front caliper, new pads. We're pretty much ready to start reassembling this once I get the hammer right, which Nicola is picking up for me right now. Got the hammer right on the go. In reality, parts like this either need replacing or restoring properly, but we're just going to protect it for now and make it look a little better. So that's a disc going on. Need to get this disc retaining screw back in. Got the pad in. It is solid and I can knock it out, but there's 2 points and it's sticking, and it doesn't matter if I swap them over. You see, this is fine. A bit of noise there, but it's moving freely. And it's not the guide pin, because it's got to be the caliper carrier. And I have to reassemble them right now, but that's going to bind straight away, and that's maybe what the problem was before. Look at that. I mean, it will come out. It's almost like the inside is warped. I've had sandpaper in there. But we finally got the brakes fitted, and I think they look absolutely brilliant. And the front and rear calipers together were £112, which is about $153. And the front discs and pads were around £66, which is around $90. Pretty good value. And when the brake's finally done, we can get round to the last job, which is getting it up on the ramp and seeing how bad it is underneath. When you put any old car on the ramp, you're hoping for some good luck, but this does not feel like good luck looking at the amount of oil that's there right now. As you come down the chassis, it is admittedly a little bit better. I've seen much worse in terms of old P38s. However, looks like you may as well subscribe, because I think there's going to be quite a few episodes fixing this particular Range Rover, as well as everything else that we've got to fix. But yeah, I'm not sure how many leaks are going on here, but it feels like there's quite a lot. I'm a positive person though, and of course it could have been worse.
So that is everything on this P38 for today. If you've not yet hit the subscribe button, hit the subscribe button. Make sure that you click the bell icon to get updates on every single video that we put out. You've no idea how much that helps the channel and helps me to continue to fix these cars and buy more builds to be able to give you even better content. Leave a comment, let me know which of the builds that we've started so far are the ones that you like the most, and also hit the like button because it's all free. Everything on YouTube from me is free. It's brilliant being back on YouTube, and I'm loving jumping into all of these cars, trying to put them all back on the road. I will see you in the next one.